Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. My name's Steve Cooper, and today I'm going to be going over some, we'll call them overlooked, forgotten, underrated, whatever you want to call them, some baits that just don't get fished out here on the Delta. They just don't get the respect that they deserve, and I'm going to give them some respect today. So hopefully we go over a couple of baits that you guys may not be familiar with. You'll get a few ideas, go out and pick up a couple of these overlooked baits and get out there and start catching fish on some new baits. So let's get into it right now.
Oh boy!
Okay, let's start with a bait that it's not underrated. It's a highly rated bait, but it's overlooked here on the Delta. And if you were watching another video or another site, this may be entitled one of the baits that the pros don't want you to know about. If you like throwing big walking baits like spooks and rovers and sammies, try the evergreen shower blow. There's something about this bait that just pulls up big fish out here. They make them in a couple of sizes. I think this is the 6-inch. They make one that's a little smaller. It's a 4-inch. This is the sexy shad. And it's got a little cup mouth here. It really walks. It throws a lot of splash out in front of it. And on the Delta, these things are just big fish baits. So if you haven't been trying the evergreen shower blow, give this a try. Both the 4 and the 6-inch work real well. You'll see I've got the hooks pulled out of the middle of this. A lot of times I'll run the bigger one with just 2 hooks. Give this a try. You'll be surprised what you may find, especially if you like throwing topwaters and you like throwing big walking style baits. That's a quick tip. Let's see what else I have here. Okay, here's something that we'll talk about. The Zoom Fluke. Everyone throws the Fluke, just the standard Zoom, what do they call it? Salty Super Fluke. Everybody knows about them, but there's a rig that a lot of people aren't fishing out here, and it's called a donkey rig. If you haven't fished the donkey rig, it's a 2 fluke setup, and I'll show you real quick how it's set up, and I'll tell you why I like fishing this rig. So we're using just straight super flukes, and I just nose hook them. Both of these are just nose rigged on an appropriate size hook. And what we have is one setup that slides up and down your line. So let's start with this. Let's start with this setup here. I will run a leader about 12 to 15 inches. This leader is going to be about 6 inches shorter than the back leader. And what we do is we just set it up with a hook, and we put a swivel on, and we feed that swivel through the line, and we attach to another swivel. So this will not go any farther we're hooked up here. It won't go any farther down the line. It'll get caught on that swivel. And then we're going to put another leader on that's approximately about 6 inches farther down, and we're going to attach another fluke. So there's 2 flukes on here. This is a floating fluke that goes up and down the line, and this is the one that's on the bottom. So your floating fluke is your shorter leader. Now you can throw this on a spinning rod, or you can throw it on a conventional rod, but there's something magic about this donkey rig. You can see it kind of how it sets up there. When you twitch this through the water, you know how a fluke generally looks. It kind of dashes around and darts around. It has that same darting action, but when you have 2 of them on, they work in conjunction, and they kind of actually fight with each other. So as you're twitching that rod, these things just go up and down all over. It's kind of almost a prerequisite to an A rig where you have a group of fish come in. It's a group of bait moving along. This is only a couple of baits, but they really interact and fight with each other. And it is, if you like throwing flukes and you haven't tried the donkey rig, give that donkey rig a try. I think you'll really like it. The other thing I'd like to talk about is the Lunker City Sluggo. And It is made by Lunker City. That's what the bag looks like. These are the 6-inch, and they look like a Fluke. Now you could rig these just like a Fluke. You can nose hook it. I've got an inline hook there. You can use it with a weighted inline hook. Tons of ways to rig these. They're a little bit bulkier than a Fluke. They have a little more of a glide. I like using these. I catch bigger fish on the Lunker City Sluggos than I do the Flukes. I catch a lot of fish on the Flukes. I like using the Lunker City Sluggos to catch the bigger fish. This is a 6-inch. They make them in, or this might be a 5-inch. They make them in a 7 and a 9-inch. Obviously, when you go to the bigger Sluggos, you want to use an appropriate style hook. And again, you can use these with an unweighted hook or a hook like we have here to get them a little deeper depending on the situation that you're fishing. That's the Lunker City Sluggo. And along with that, there's another bait. I think it's called a squirm, and it's made by Yum. This is another Fluke style bait, and it just has a different twitch on it. Got a big eye on it. This is a 6-inch, I think, or a 5-inch. They also make these in 7 and maybe even a 9. And I like to nose hook this with just a little mosquito hook and fish it and twitch it around just like a Fluke. Great little bait. One of the things I like about this, I use a color that is a purple and black, especially when I'm fishing at night or really low light water conditions, early in the morning, late in the evening. And this is it's black and purple, and I really like this one at low light levels. Just a couple things to try, and that's the I think they call this a squirm or something. It's made by the Yum Bait Company. While I'm on this topic of Yum, I'd also like to talk about an alternative to Yamamoto Senkos. We're here in the spring right now, and what's going to happen after the spawn, the big females are going to have a recovery period, and we're all going to find a place in time, whether it's in the next week or 2 or 3 weeks, where a lot of the males are on a heavy feed and the females just aren't feeding, and everybody's going to say, geez, I'm catching a lot of fish, I'm not getting big fish. If they love the 5-inch Senko, but these are expensive. They're about $7.50 a pack. So what I would suggest, my favorite bait to replace this Senko is a Yum Dinger. And I believe these are $3. They are, I think they come 10 in a pack. And if I'm fishing a tournament, yeah, I'll probably want to fish a Yamamoto. But I'll tell you guys, let me open this bag up. These are maybe the next best thing, and for $3, they look just like a Senko. They've got good action. They're not as much salt in them, so they don't drop as fast. You may have to fish these with a Nico rig, but they have great colors and they're super cheap. So a great alternative to the Senko is the Yum, the Yum Dinger. If you can't find the Yum Dingers and you're looking for another bait company that's little known, and I found out about this bait company, it's the Mayhem Bait Company. They are up in Canada, and I had a subscriber tell me about Liquid Mayhem, which is a scent. I've been using this Liquid Mayhem on all my punch rigs, worms, anything that you're setting up. This Liquid Mayhem is a really good scent, number one. I also like, when I looked on their website, I'd like to talk about their brand products that are their plastics. They make a really nice worm. It's an alternative to a Senko, and it is pretty darn cheap. I forget what these are. They're a lot cheaper than the Senkos. But what I would suggest is, if you look up Mayhem Bait Company and you're interested in a new scent, if you get a pack of these worms, they got a promotion going on now where they put in a 1 or 2 ounce bottle, tube of the scent in each pack of worms. So you can try the scent and try the worms at the same time. You can't go wrong. That's the Mayhem Bait Company, Liquid Mayhem. They've got worms, and they also make a really nice, like a chigger craw. I don't have one out here, but it really good bait company, and you don't see a lot of guys using the Mayhem baits. All right, what do we go with next? Let's jump around to, okay, I know what we'll talk about. Here's a bait that you don't see used, or you see it used out here, but you don't see it talked about, and that is the Zoom Horny toad. They're just a little plastic frog. They are kind of an alternative to a hollow body frog, and there's several ways that you can rig this bait. I have it on a T-rig, and what's nice about this is you can hook this bait up. It's totally weedless. You can throw it in places where you throw a hollow body frog and pull it across the top of the vegetation with the appropriate size weight, and I have this weight pegged. I can pull it through, and when you find those patches, you can stop it and drop it, and this will drop down in, and you could pull it out of that hole. So a lot of the fish that may not really be super aggressive enough to come up and take the bait off the surface, as it drops through these holes or pockets, you can catch an extra fish or two with these things, and they make some really great frog colors and a good assortment of colors. So that is the Zoom Horny toad. You can fish this straight up with a wide gap hook. You can fish it with an inline worm hook. You can fish, I like these box hooks too. If you haven't tried those, give those a try. I know they're out of business now, but Tackle Warehouses still has a bunch of these box hooks. They're really great. They've got everything from punch hooks to worm hooks to kind of light wire hooks, but they are generally considered a heavy wire hook, and they're very strong hooks, and they're a lot of fun to fish with. The last but not least, you can also use a weighted hook with a keeper, and basically put that on there if you want to drop it. When you're using it like this, these things you can also use, they look just like I'll call them a little crankbait or a little swim bait. So you can actually throw them out and reel them in right above the vegetation, the hydrilla out here. That's the Zoom Horny toad. Those are a lot of fun to fish. What else do we have here? Here's a bait that I'll say 15 years ago, it was more popular than a Cinco. I don't know what happened. Maybe that's about the time the Cinco came out or whatever, and the Cinco took over. But that is another Zoom product, and I know people know about this bait, but they don't fish it a whole lot. I don't hear a lot of people, and that's the Brush Hog. And we have baby brush hogs and regular brush hogs. And I'm going to tell you something about this baby brush hog. Like I said, about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I don't know. The Zoom baby brush hog in a June bug color, this was a killer. I mean, you couldn't find these things at local bait stores because everybody was using them, everybody was catching fish. Then I don't know what happened. People just forgot about them or whatever, but they stopped using them. This is the baby brush hog. This is the Magnum brush hog. They come in great colors. They still work out here. I use these with a T-rig, just like a T-rig worm. You can put them on and just drag them across the bottom. You could flip them into toolies. You can put them on weighted worm hooks like this and get them down in the vegetation. Anywhere you would throw a beaver or a lizard or any type of creature bait, give these things a try. That's the Zoom baby brush hog and the Magnum brush hog. Just depends on how big you want to go. They really catch fish, and again, that is a bait that I think the older guys out here, guys that have been around, they're going to basically know about these, and sometimes you just have to be reminded they're still around, and other times if for people that haven't been fishing out here a long time, they may have never heard of the baby brush hog or the brush hog. So try the brush hogs. What else? That's Zoom. Let's see. Here's something that I'm also going to suggest, especially in the summer. I told you that, or we talked about in a few weeks, the big fish are going to get hard to catch, the big females, because they are recovering from spawn, and we're going to be getting a lot of small males. That's going to go for a period of a couple of weeks or maybe 3 weeks, depending on the year. And then all of a sudden, people that are crying that they're not catching big fish are going to have a big smile on their face because they're going to go out and start catching big fish. Well, that means that the females are recovering and they're going to start feeding vigorously. And one of the things that I like to do is throw a giant worm. This is I don't know if this is a 12 or a 13, 14 inch worm, but I throw these out here, especially at low light periods, at night, or when you have a little bit of a wind chop. The bigger fish love these things. And one suggestion that I'll talk about, and you can throw these T-rigged, you're going to want to use an appropriate size hook with these. And if you throw them T-rigged, one of the things that I like to do is use a chicken rig, meaning that as you put the bait on the hook, you pull it up through and you pull the line through and drop the hook down into here, so your line is actually still going through the worm. You guys know what a chicken rig is, and I'll use that as a chicken rig. But the way that I really like to fish this worm is Nico style. And again, it's a worm that number one, not a lot of people use, and number two, they don't throw it Nico style. Now this is a smaller hook, so I'm going to you need an appropriate size wacky rig or Nico style hook. I'm gonna hook this not quite in the middle, but somewhere in the maybe a third down from the top. We're going to stick this on like this, and with these bigger worms you can use a heavy Nico weight in them. So these big worms do not get overpowered by a heavy weight in the head. They will still work like a regular worm. Whoa! Whew. Just a big goose, or whatever the heck those big birds are. Anyhow, this is what you have here, and as this thing goes down, man, this thing, you know, you're not going to get as many bites on this as you would a 6 inch or a 5 inch Cinco, but the bigger fish will take these, especially at low light periods or when you have some chop on the water. And remember, if you have one of those days where it gets hard to fish smaller worms and you're putting more and more weight on them, pretty soon the worm gets overpowered because it's just like a heavy sinker dropping down to the bottom. These big worms tend to hold the weight better, and they still have, you know, they'll still have the action that they do. So don't forget about using the big worms. And I know many companies have the 10-inch Magnum worms, the 12-inch Magnum worms. I think Yum has them. I think Strike King has them. I'm not particularly, you know, looking for one bait, just the big ribbon tail worms. So don't forget those. Hey, you know what? I talked about, I'm going to go back a little bit. We talked about the Zoom Horny Toad. Check this out. Lunker City, again, a bait company that doesn't get a lot of respect, makes a thing called a salad spoon. And it looks like this. Guys aren't using these out here, and they are excellent baits. And I'm going to give you a real hint here. I'll tell you what I've been doing with them. But first of all, you can use them just like a horny toad with a unweighted wide gap hook or a inline hook, or if you want to use a weighted hook, you can put these on here, and you want to fish them with the belly side down, just like this. And they're just like a big grub, but I mean, look at that tail. When that gets in the water, you can imagine what that looks like. So that's the Lunker City salad spoon. The other thing that I highly recommend trying is the next time, or when you start using buzz baits, look at this. These things make a great trailer for buzz baits. You can use them with or without the living rubber. So they can be effective both ways. If you have a couple of these already rigged up where you've got the rubber cut off and you're using maybe swim baits or something, try this thing on a buzz bait. Again, you can use it with or without the rubber. That's the Lunker City salad spoon. Just don't hear about them. Give them a try and then send me a picture of the big bass you catch on this thing. Okay, so that's the Lunker City salad spoon. Okay, you know what? Here's another bait that I really like, and it is by Big Bite Baits. If you're looking for an alternative for a an alternative for a creature bait that you're punching or that you are T-rigging and throwing it in there, something that looks like a rodent or this is what it is. It is by Big Bite Baits, and what are they calling this thing? Yo Mama. So this thing here is a nice bait. It comes in great colors. It's perfect for flipping, for punching, for T-rigging. And what I like about these, they're cheap. I think, again, they're just a little over $3, and they're made out of a tough plastic. So if you're punching these, they don't get tore up. They don't rip up as much as a lot of the Yamamoto baits. So again, Big Bite Baits has a lot of good baits out here, and they just don't get talked about as much. So look at the Big Bite Baits Yo Mama. They have these at Tackle Warehouse. I know Kenny Ma is a big fan of those. I think he uses them quite a bit, and he's talked about them. Here's another one that I like from Big Bite Baits. You guys know that I always have a chatterbait on. Here we go. We'll pull this. This will be my last bait, so we'll hurry on this. I love a Jackhammer chatterbait. This is not a secret, but the trailers that you have can make a world of difference. You know that I like this Man's Reelin' Shad, but they don't make these anymore. So I have been looking around at different trailers for your chatterbaits, and one of the trailers that I really like is made by Big Bite Baits, and this one is called the Kamikaze Swimmin', I think. I don't know where they come up with these names, but this is what it looks like, and they come in a number of different colors. This is what it looks like, and if you look at this thing, it almost looks like a Zaco, the way that they have this, but it's lighter. It's thinner, and it has more action, and this tail doesn't drag at all. So as you rig this, excuse me, on a chatterbait, I like to have what they call that hip shake, and I'm using that with the reel. So it's not so much the action that the trailer has, but as the bait hinges in the middle, it pulls this bait back and forth, and this really has a nice action. So if you're looking for a chatterbait trailer, give this a try. It's the Big Bite Baits Kamikaze Swimmin'. They make a great green pumpkin. If you're using that green pumpkin chatterbait or green chatterbaits, they make a great green pumpkin red flake color that goes along really well with a lot of the green pumpkin jackhammers, or D&M, or whatever brand of bait that you're using for the trailer. Again, if you can find the Man's Reelin' Shad, that is the #1 trailer for me. They're not making them anymore. Some guys said they've found a few of them on eBay or this, that, and the other thing. I bought a ton of these, but I'm going to run out of them sooner or later. So that's the Man's Reelin' Shad, if you can find that. With that, guys, that's a lot to take in, but I just wanted to throw a lot of baits out here. It's getting into spring, late spring. We're going to have a lot of summertime fishing, and as we get more pressure out here, or maybe some of you guys are tournament fishing and you're looking maybe for a bait that you haven't used, maybe for a bait that's not being thrown by everyone, that the fish haven't seen, give some of these a try, and you might be surprised that they catch fish. And these baits, I can almost guarantee you, if you stop me on the water during the summertime, I'll have 1 or 2 of these baits on deck. I always have some of these baits set up with rods that are below deck, and as I fish through the summer and I'm having trouble catching fish or it gets a little slow, I'll start to pull these baits out, and every year I find a couple of them that just seem to outproduce my number 1 baits. And as I pull that rod up and I put it on the deck, it stays on the deck throughout the summer. So these baits can really give you a boost on the number of fish, and some of them, like this salad spoon, the big magnum worms, this don't forget this shower blow in the summer. Again, the shower blow, the bigger shower blows, man, they are killer on striped bass. So if you're looking for striped bass, throw that shower blow, and that's about it. Don't forget the Lunker City Sluggos, the bigger size for stripers too. With that, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Keep watching the channel. It's getting into the time of year where I'm going to start doing some more of the fun videos. I've been putting out a lot of videos that are just, you know, introducing you to some of the Ned rigs, some of the crazy ideas that I do out here, some oddball baits. And pretty soon I will really start filming my fishing, and hopefully we're going to get some big fish on camera and have some fun little videos, action videos coming up. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys on the water.